Are we live now? Okay, I thought I was going to get frozen there for a second. So, welcome to yet another edition of the SCA Coaches Corner. I'm your host, Sir Barry of Anglesey, East Kingdom, and we will be talking about Gulf Wars Melees for Gulf Wars 31. Let's introduce our guests. Let's start with the top of the screen there. Jean-Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sir Jean-Paul Ruthendale from Trimaris. I, as of last week, was the former general of Trimaris, and I was general during the last, few Gulf Wars.
All right, and then let's have our other warlord.
Hello, I'm Martel, a knight of Ansteorra, one of the first two called from the Premier Court of Vintime. I'm the current general of Ansteorra, previously second in command, a regional commander, baronial commander, and household commander. I kind of live for melees, so I often find myself happily placed in a tactical command situation.
And then last but not least, who may end up being my co-host, as we found out the last half hour. Bess just can't stop inserting herself.
That's the
She's
way.
great, though. Go ahead and introduce yourself. I think everyone knows you, though, by now.
So I'm Bess. I'm from Eldemir, and I myself live for melees and for war. So this is an exciting episode for me. As I normally do, I will be answering some of the questions that we get through the discussion in the group. So please feel free to drop your comments in there. We'll be bringing them back to the group for any comments or discussions that you would like us to have. And if you have anything in specific that you would like to talk about, please feel free to drop us a note about that, and we'll be happy to address those issues too. Barry?
Yes. And if anyone is out there, just drop a comment just to say hi. Sometimes it's just nice to see who's on. And if no one's on because it's Easter weekend, that's okay. This thing is always recorded and saved on YouTube. So yeah, let's get started. So we just got back from Gulf Wars a couple weeks ago, and it took us a while to schedule this meeting. Here we are. And I guess we could probably start off with maybe our first question, which is, what is Gulf Wars? So maybe assume that someone... Well, we do know that we have some of the bigger melee events. We have around the known world. We have the used to be Australia, which went away, and I think now it's back to War of the Phoenix. And of course, the big one in the north, that would be out in Arizona, I think. Big one in the northeast is Penzik. We have, I think, the Great Western War is in Northern California area. And then is Lily still a thing? That's in the Outlands. And then I know there's like a smaller event in Atlanta, War of the Wings.
I think.
Oh, Kansas? Yeah. And but anyway, so yeah, why don't you guys tell us what Gulf Wars is? So who wants to take the lead on that? There you go.
I'll go ahead and start.
Go for it, Grandpa.
Gulf Wars was started like 31 years ago as a war between two kingdoms that had not previously ever crossed swords that were where we were primaries. I'm Ansteorra and Trimaris. We decided that there was a middle ground, which is King's Arrow Ranch. We have been using that since Gulf Wars 1, when it was literally a day trip like melee event. And from there, we decided not only did we have such a great time, we also decided that there was like a mission statement involved with this war. It was something that we wanted to see great competition, but we also wanted to have good times. So we always considered it a war. The tagline is a war with no enemies, and we do keep war points, but technically the war always ends in a tie because we're not enemies. We're there to have fun. And we've been doing it since then. So we just had, I think it was Gulf Wars 31 was the last, about 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, sounds right. Mm-hmm. You want to add to that, Sir Martel?
I mean, he nailed all the big points. For my local kingdom, it's what I call the big event that I want to invite it's the truest SDA experience for my local kingdom. It's where you get the best flavor of all that we offer, both tournaments and melees and arts and sciences and the full camp experience, and it's like coming home for me.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question. totally unrelated to the actual melee. King's Arrow Ranch, my understanding is it was sold to a group of people. As I understand it, some of them are in the SCA, but I've heard that Gulf War will only be here for the next couple of years. Is that right? Will it go to a new site? What's going to happen?
I was told that we have a 5-year contract currently, and that they're, upon the successful of the first few, they're going to extend that. So, as I understand it, in perpetuity, we should be at King's Arrow Ranch.
Yeah, from what I heard, it's basically the same, that it was sold to people that are willing to give us 5 years and see how it goes in those. But I had also heard from people who were like, kind of like close to those people, they really enjoyed us. They had a great time at this hosting this site, or being the owners of the site that hosted this event, and they had a really good time, and really, I'm sure, not only just enjoyed the general atmosphere, but enjoyed the seeming like financial windfall that it became for them. So we might be looking at new owners, but this will still be able to continue, maybe even beyond our 5 years there at King's Arrow Ranch.
So who are the primary kingdoms that are fighting in this war, and are there any common allies that maybe one kingdom typically brings with them?
The primary kingdoms are Trimaris and Ansteorra, though you could say, because it happens in Glenabin might be considered a primary in that. But they as far as like what general allies there are for Trimaris, we've always had a close relationship with Meridies and Midrealm. The last few years, Atlantia has been a close ally. North Shield fought on Ansteorra's side, but they have fought on our side in the past as well. And East Realm fought with us. And Aethelmark. So generally speaking, those were like that was like the distribution for us this year. Generally speaking, our staunchest allies have always been like Meridies and Midrealm and Atlantia of late.
So then who does that leave for Ansteorra then, Sir Martel?
Callantir has been there's a standing treaty between Ansteorra and Callantir, where they support us at Gulf War, and there's a series of events that we support them at, which is great for me because I live right across the border, so I play extensively in Callantir. Other than that, our allies are pretty well gathered, as we were talking about at Penzik. When our heirs go to Penzik, one of their jobs is they're trying to arrange allies for the upcoming Gulf War.
Okay, and I'm actually kind of curious. I'm only recently have I been involved in the command structure in our kingdom, and starting to see a little bit behind the lines there, or behind the scenes. And I'm curious, like what is involved in getting an ally, or at least that you can tell us officially.
Well, so this is my opinion, because so our last crowns, from I understand, our current crowns, we're much more interested in making it a fair fight, because and evening up allies rather than trying to gain allies, because we had some due to post-COVID things, our crown schedule's a little bit off right now. Our current crown is actually, with the permission of the bod, sitting a little bit longer reign to get us back on our regular schedule. But normally, one of the great things about getting allies is, we support you at this war, and you support us at this war, but it also gives a real output for like the ANS community and the Bardic community to contribute to wars, because we'll make a gift basket, or we'll make like I've composed an original piece to sing in honor of another kingdom as one of our allies. And so it allows the entire society to contribute to the war effort rather than just those getting on the field. And so we'll have those gift baskets presented in court, or And sometimes they're really useful things. Like one year we gave crossbows to Callantir because they allowed the new type of archery.
That's one thing I liked about Gulf Wars is, I lived in Trimaris for 5 years, and it was really nice to be able to see like the combat archery down there. The sky is like darkened with arrows. I have to say that was my first real experience up at Pennsic, which is the other war that I really know. Combat archery is sporadic at best, and there's not a lot of arrows. But I have to say, if you've never experienced either being on the outside of a castle, and because they have a castle down there that they use, you guys got to talk about that. The arrows just like darkening the sky, like it seems like hundreds of arrows just going up and over, or being on the inside and seeing them shoot out and not knowing where they go. It is an amazing thing to see, and kind of brings Henry V to life. Like, honest to God, that is an amazing thing. So cool that you gave the Callantir some crossbows.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, it seems to me like there are basically two avenues to allyship. One is tradition. A lot of kingdoms traditionally stay with either, some kingdoms stay with one primary and other kingdoms stay with another primary. It's not unheard of, but it's usually pretty rare that those kinds of like relationships get switched around. But then there's also like action, so it depends on, well, if you want a favor from me, our people to come fight with you, why don't you come up to my coronation and we can have a drink together? That'd be kind of cool. And then I'll come down to your coronation or something like that. So you see a lot of that kind of quid pro quo involved with making out, especially newer allies or ones that have not been traditionally part of a kingdom ally.
Do you have your allies sitting in on your command structure meetings? So before a battle, will you have your allies sitting in with you? I know it happens elsewhere, but I don't know if it happens down there.
Yes, very much so. We'll have like a pre-war meeting, and usually it's like the crowns, coronets, and generals that will be in attendance, and it can be either as granular as going over each one of the battles. Like there's 5. Let's say on the field battle, there's 5 field, like we'll be doing that 5 times. A couple of them with and without archery. A couple of them we're going to keep switching the direction of the battles, and we'll go over who's on what side each time. And then there are some times when it's just, all right, for the ravine battle, we'll make a game time decision. Or as general, I found that it was much easier for me as far as like putting together the battle plans to like kind of like leave everything open. So to say like, all right, who wants to do what in a battle? Are there certain the certain kingdoms they love taking a specific role in a battle, and I would hate to keep them from that role if that is what they would like to do and are really efficient at doing. So let's say a kingdom like Meridies wants to do X, like, okay, it's yours. You do X. And then who wants to do Y? Oh, I don't want to do Y. I want to do Y. Okay, you do Y. So it's just really whatever the other kings and generals want to do or would like to add to the battles. And we do that pretty easily. Usually the war things are just to kind of hash out what the rules were. Like what has archery, what doesn't have archery, the times, the setups, that sort of thing. But really, as far as okay, we're going to have this kind of like war strategy. Those are, from my experience, those have usually been game time decisions.
Question. So Bess brought this up before we went live. We talked about, and again, our experience is Pennsic. Because Bess is from Eldamir. I'm from the east, so Pennsic is very close. I'm 5 hours away from Pennsic. I think Bess is within 10. So no planes to get there. So we're very familiar with that. And we talked about how Pennsic has like a beer and brats meeting. Is the official or unofficial title for it? Is like the kind of like the last get together to discuss things. I've been on a planning committee. We start out months ahead of time, and then even at Pennsic we'll have a meeting, I think, at least the night before every battle. So if we have a bridge battle on Tuesday, there will be a meeting on Monday night or Monday late afternoon that brings all the different warlords and kingdoms and stuff to get together to kind of work out the final plans, And sometimes the plans for us are as simple as, okay, let's make sure we don't have, 2/3 of the army planning to fight on one bridge and the other third of the army to fight on the other 4 bridges. Like, you kind of figure out who's going to take which bridge, who's going to take the front. Are we going to rotate bridges after the first one? Then we'll slide people down. Do you guys do stuff like that at Gulf Wars? Do you actually get together? Maybe Martel can take this one and get together the nights before, or how's that work?
So we do have our initial meeting, which this year, sometimes it's combined, but this year took place under the Primary Kingdom's Royal Pavilion and evened up our allies. And then before the battles, what our side does is both Ansteorra and Palantir have had some enterprising generals in the past that made large blown up maps that are laminated of the battle site. And so it's one of my favorite things. Like, I'm a huge nerd, and we spread it out on the table and we use dry erase markers. We're like, okay, we're going to be here and you're going to be here. Okay. And what do you think? And some of the battles are more tactically interesting than others. Like the Ravine battle is 3 objectives in a row, and you res a whole bunch and you try and get them and keep it's more like getting
objectives. What objectives? What are your 3 objectives?
Okay, so in the ravine battle, whether you run it down the ravine or along the ravine, there are either 3 flags or 3 houses that are for contested control. And this year it was if you hold the flag up with your kingdom's color up, there's a marshal with a stopwatch watching that flag. And so to the second, the amount of time you can have that flag in your possession,
wow,
wins you that war point. So as far as strategy, you want to try and win too. And you tell you guys, you got to dig deep because we're just going to be going for a long time. And this year was especially long because they expected rain on Saturday. Instead of doing 2 15-minute res sections, they did 2 30-minute res sections. And boy, was the attrition rough in the second half.
Oh, I thought it was 45 minutes.
Was it?
Yeah, it was like the 45-minute battle. I thought, oh, battle's over, and they went.
I thought we were done. Like,
I was like, oh my
I think
God.
we all thought that.
I was loading up, and they're like, "Oh no, switch sides," and I'm like, "I'm the general. I probably should have known that."
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Another 45 minutes. I hope my man at arms brought enough water. Jeez.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah. So did you say you guys do plan the stuff the night before? Do you have like a specific meeting, like in someone's camp or something?
The Ansteorra has a big freaking tent that we rent, like, and we'll usually do our commanders meetings there so that we can have coffee and stuff while we do it. And it's also well lit, because sometimes due to the crown schedule, we'll have to do it late at night or whatever, because the crown schedule at Gulf War it's not fair to them. They're so busy.
Right. Yeah, the Trimaris, we just do it at the Trimarian Royal Campsite, and sometimes we do them before every battle. I've been in plenty of those, and for instance, this past one, we just had one major meeting that was by the will of the crown. He wanted one meeting, and we just hash out all the broad strokes on that one, and then we'll deal with the intricacies on the battlefield as far as like setting up armies and stuff.
By the way, we were camped. I was camped right across from you guys, right across from the entrance of the Trimaran. I don't know if that's Royal, the big Trimaran camp. I guess it is.
Yeah, with the wooden fence. That's us.
Yeah. You guys have a really nice party there. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about that. So, were you at the party at the Trimaran, the camp party?
Yeah, I ran. Martel. Yeah,
either one of you. Yeah.
Hey, you told me to meet you at the camp party from the rapier field, didn't you? I came. I couldn't find you.
Yeah, I emceed the music, and I had to set up all the electronic stuff.
Okay. Yeah. We had the. I like you guys do that. The bungee cord thing where they have to see how
that's
far.
very popular.
Yeah. Oh, but for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, that may be listening or may listen later. Yeah, they have this. They basically attach a bungee cord to like a tree or a spike in the ground or something like that. They wrap like a little thing around the waist, and then you basically try to go as far forward as you can, and then you have a mug with, I guess, a drink in it, and then you put it on the ground, and you can't spill anything, and then basically whoever puts the mug on the ground, the furthest, it would be the winner. So I don't know if you guys heard a big group of people chanting Angus over and over again, but that was one of our guys. He was this enormous Canadian guy, was with us, and I don't know if he eventually won, but it was like him and another guy kept going. They kept going like an inch further each time. But yeah, it's a very fun thing. And it took me a while to figure out that the kids, that you guys were cheating with the kids. Because I was like, how is that kid going so far, that I saw the people behind him would sort of pull on the bungee cord.
So Jean-Paul, I have a question for you. You had said you guys had one meeting this year, and you discussed all the broad strokes. What's a broad stroke?
Oh, okay. Broad stroke. What battles there were, what the any change in the rules from the previous year were brought up. Like, for instance, if the ravine battle was going east-west configuration, or like this year it was north-south configuration, we just had to make sure that we told, make sure everybody knew that if there was any weapon restrictions, which at the beginning of the town battle there was one, but there was like some miscommunication, and then we just basically scrapped it at the end because apparently no two people could agree what the weapon restrictions were for that battle. So, but that's the kind of information that we wanted to do. Like, here are the battles, here are the rules for the battles, and if any have changed from the previous year, and then as far as placement and tactics, those are the smaller points that I said we went before. But for the broad strokes, that was basically it.
By the way, I'm now the proud owner of a useless 6-foot-long polearm. It used to be my 6'8" long polearm that I now have to replace. Actually, I got a funny story to tell you about that. So just so you know, I don't know who was involved on the weapon length limitation. And I've done battles like that before, and they've been a lot of fun. I mean, I'm a primary spear fighter. And when they say, hey, nothing longer than 7.5, first time I didn't like it, but then I was like, wait, you mean I still have the longest weapon on the field, but now I don't have to run away when they charge? I think I like this. So people are a little frustrated because a lot of people came down on a plane and they didn't have, they didn't bring down, other weapons. So we're trying to figure out. I was expecting to see like Ice Falcon or something out in the marketplace with a whole bunch of 6-foot-long weapons for like $300 each or something. No offense, Ice Falcon, I'm friends with him, but I thought he is still a businessman, so he might have been able to make a buck or two off of that. But anyway, so at the last minute, one of my friends comes up to me. He goes, "Hey Barry, did you hear the news? They're allowing spears again." And I had this like really long look on my face. It's like, is there something wrong? I was like, well, I didn't sleep well last night. And I was just thinking, man, I'm looking forward to a whole battle of standing in the back rank with a polearm, just waiting for my 5% of the action. As spear can be a very exhausting weapons form. But I motivated myself. And it turned out to be a huge, fun battle. And maybe with that, I'll segue into if we can pull up the video of last year's town battle. If Captain Sivert can bring it up. There we go. And do you guys want to talk about exactly what this format is here?
This is so cool. It looks like some sort of like really great video game. I love it.
The main strategy of the town battle is that there's a certain number of little buildings that we consider like houses. I think there was like 6 on there. I don't know about this last year's one. This year, I'll speak in reference to this year because that's the one that I think most people will recognize.
Yeah, well, you can see one like right there on the left, like right in front of that tree. There's like a little tiny like rectangular structure that some people hanging out in. Yeah.
Yeah, this year you would see we had 6 set up, and the whole point was the amount of time that a kingdom had controlling each of those little buildings, and then that was added up at the end of the battle. And then if one kingdom had more people and more time in them, then yeah, because they had to be uncontested. Then they won the battle. All this rope stuff you see on the floor there, that is our representation of a river. So there's a river going through this town. The only people that were allowed to walk on the river were chivalry. The idea being that we would have horses, and so we could ford the river easier.
I really liked the change they made this year, where it was any martial peer can go in the water.
Yes.
Because and that also went for the rapier version of the town battle. So as a knight, I got to go on the rapier field into the water and try and run some flanks. Mostly, I just got wrecked by mods.
Right. And the mods had the chance, for those that fought heavy, to go into the river as well. There's been some variations of that rule where they there was one year where anybody who was a peer, royal or otherwise, could go into the river.
Royal peers were allowed to go this year.
Yeah, royal peers were allowed, and like I say, knights and mods.
And this is the first person of this year's, and that's actually the back of me right there, the golden purple.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're starting off inside the castle, so that was our resurrection point. So I guess for everyone that's not familiar with this, it's a resurrection battle. So every time you die, you go back to the resurrection point, and you get to come back in.
So Martel,
yes.
You had said before the show started that when you get home from Gulf Wars, you write down all your ideas and you bring them back to the next year. So this is last year's Gulf War.
Mm-hmm.
So when you guys were negotiating this year, what did you find that worked and didn't work from last year in this battle that you brought to 2023?
So I think the strategy went the same way, because on the attacking side, John Paul did the exact same thing we did. But you do the math on what houses you can get and what houses you can't. Right. And there's a narrow point on, I think, the east side, just past the main castle gate. Mm-hmm. And if you can establish a shield wall there, which you can see in the video, the Lion Dragon Guard is building that wall. That if the enemy fights there and can't get past it, then numerically you're going to win the battle. Although I heard, John Paul, that you guys on the inside of the fort missed the lay on. There were people who didn't have their helmets on.
Yeah, we were all when the sides were switched, we were all inside the fort. We didn't get a notification as to when the next fighting was starting, so a lot of people were had their hats off and were drinking, and all of a sudden we heard "lay on," and everybody's screaming, "Oh, the battle's starting!" So we're like, "What?" And we're throwing our helmets back on as fast as possible.
The same thing happened on the inside. Palantir was holding a pop-up court.
Oh my god!
When Leon was called.
Oh my goodness! Now explain, what is a pop-up court?
Rather than having thrones and you sit down, they called court in session essentially to give some of their cool battlefield awards.
Sure. I got you.
Really cool stuff.
Right, instead of like you say, instead of having an official with chairs and everything. Okay, I got you. I didn't hear that. I've never heard that phrase before.
Yeah. Okay.
Jean-Paul, it's been a while since you were at Pennsic. So Martel, how long has it been since you've been at Pennsic, or have you been there?
Last year.
Okay.
I am going again this year. It will be my third.
Scoreballs. So, one of the things they do to announce the starts of battles, and it just occurs to me, it might be something that you want to consider, is we, in the north, we have a castle similar to yours. We have people stand at the top, and they hold flags up so everybody can see it. And then they just drop the flags when the lay-on is on. So that way it's a visual cue for everybody. And they also have banners with a 10-minute mark, the Roman numeral X, that type of thing. And it's helpful because the field is so big.
Yeah. Normally what happens is that the marshal in charge is on top of the towers in the fort.
Okay.
But they have fallen into disrepair. Speaking of the new owners we were talking about earlier, my friends in Glen Aubin say that due to the new owners and everything going so well, they're going to go forward with their construction project, and we should have new towers by next year.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Isn't it? That's cool.
Yeah, because like I said, this fort was built many years ago. Like I said, between 2 and 5 was when this fort was finally built up, and there has been some. I mean, the big thing is because we're a volunteer organization, and even when it comes to repairs, even more so, where we're driving on our own time and our own money to fix these, it can be a challenge to get that together. So whenever we can do it, or whenever it's possible to do it.
So I'm curious. It used to be that we could fight over the walls, and people would put a ramp up and then jump through the crenellations. Does that still happen, or has that been?
Well, it has not these last couple of years for a couple of reasons. One, the structure, the structure of the fort is a little bit compromised, so we can still fight over the crenellations. People still throw shields and throw their shots over the over the edge of the wall trying to get it. That's still okay. The use of the ramps has kind of waned as for quite a few years now. I think one, because the ramps they're a bit. No, they're not in bad shape, but because the fort is not in good shape, there's a worry about a safety issue there. 2, I think it's also a lot of us were much younger when we use these ramps. So my 52-year-old armored self is not going to run over those ramps anymore.
Yeah, I hear you on that one.
I do not get more than 6 inches off the ground ever.
Even when I was young, jumping off that ramp, I did not realize how deep the inside of the fort was in comparison to the front of the fort. There's a bit of a space gap between those or like distance gap between the walls.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm gonna jump down like 3 feet. No, I ended up jumping down like 5.5 feet almost. I mean, it was quite a distance, and the only reason why I wasn't completely just destroyed is because they called hold just as soon as me and a few other people jumped in. Amongst the ring of spears that I saw were about ready to take us, and I was like, "It's good, guys. You got it."
Yeah, I have Can I jump in real quick? I have a quick tactics question here. My experience is mainly small team tactics or unit tactics. I don't know if you guys have seen. I've got a blog out there called The Tactical Fighter that I've been doing for like 6 years now, and that's The Tactical Fighter for anyone that didn't catch that the first time. And I noticed, so part of what we have going on here is something that has evolved over the last 30 years. When I first started fighting, it was very big to have these sort of shield walls with like lots of big rectangular shields. And then you put the spears behind the shield walls, and then you might have poles in the second. And the idea was, you've got your 36-inch swords with your 6.5-foot tall poles in the second rank and your 9-foot spears in the third rank. And here I see a little bit of a mix where we get a lot of this like spears in the front ranks fighting each other. And one of the things that you guys have here that you almost don't see at all up in the north are these giant rectangular shields. And remember earlier in the video, there was like a unit of like maybe 12 of these like rectangular shields together. So is that a tactic that is still sort of common down in the south? And what do you guys think of that? How do you implement that? Like, I'm sure certain units have a certain philosophy over other units.
In Ansteorra, that's one of the things I'm trying to push for as general, is to organize us into units with gear that complements each other. The shields you were looking at are the moon, and in that line we saw earlier is the Moonshadow Scutums. They're a fighting company from a college town. So their gear and their armor is like community property, and their medieval studies club gets school credit to come to Gulf Wars.
This sounds like the old Callantyr unit from the 90s.
Yeah, they definitely stole it. But like I'm not married to one shield style. I use my war company uses aluminum 2 foot by 4 foot with a point on top for head dodges. Every couple of years, I hear about somebody going to run like a Viking unit with big round shields or a Greek unit with big round shields, and I'd love to see any of that. But as a tactical leader, there's so much more value in being able to say, I want the Bringalad unit to go over here versus saying I need shields up front. And if anybody listens, you'll get like a kite, a heater, and a round, and then the spears will pick them off. And as far as the formations, my kingdom has a battle book that we have various formations and commands that are spread throughout the kingdom. We have an event where we teach at it, that's put on by the knights, where we teach those tactics and those formations. So we don't, unless we're receiving a charge, we don't usually do the shields up front with the spears over the top, because any spear that's out front will outrange our spears and be able to snipe our shield fighters. But we do what's called a beta formation, where it's every other shield. Ideally, it's shield, spear, shield, spear, shield, spear. And the benefit to that is if 2 spears are fighting opposed to me, as a shieldman, I've always been a shieldman up front. If there's 2 shieldmen fighting up front, or 2 spearmen fighting up front, I'm waiting until they both shoot in opposite directions, especially if they shoot crossways, because I'm going to charge up and I'll usually kill both. Because once you get past the point of a spear, but if instead of just having 2 spearmen, there's a shieldman in the middle, that charge is much less safe.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, we do a lot of the same things. I watched the video, and there's a couple seconds. I mean, the guy with the pole was sort of on our side of the field. It was near me a lot of the time. I got to see myself in there. And my very first instinct, and I'll admit right up front, I'm gonna do a lot of bragging about myself here, which I don't get to do very often, but here I'm the host, so I get to do this. No, my very first instinct was I'm looking across at the unit of shields, and that very first section of video, we did very well. We did very well with that, and the guy even commented in the video that our spears were doing good work here. And my first thought was like, wow, this shield wall is, no offense to the college guys in that shield wall, but I thought, is this really a very effective tactic? Because, we kind of killed a lot of them. There wasn't like a lot of spear support. And then I thought, well, there were 2 of us that both have been fighting for 30 years. And you're telling me you had basically a bunch of college people across from us that really slowed us down. And that was one thing I noticed. In the East, we don't usually have shields that big. I don't know, the mid realm, I think, what was it? Dark Yard. They've got like a lot of rectangular shields. So the same sort of unit. We've run into them in the East before, and particularly in like a sort of mobile battle. We weren't necessarily worried about them killing us, depending on the situation. But God, they can really slow you down with those shields. Just like really sort of create like a big sort of mobile obstacle that just really slows things down. And then we had some other units. And again, I'll to sort of give the other side of that situation. There was a point where, again, that same unit was across from us as we're trying to control a building, and we had a bunch of spears out front, and they just ran us over. And a lot of us survived, but they were able to push that line back, a good 10 feet, and then sort of control the building, which there's, certainly a lot of stuff they have that they can do there. The one thing I like that you said, though, is when you have that unit, whether it's the best unit you can have in the field or not, it's still a unit that what it's capable of, and you as a general can utilize it and put it into the places that you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You first. You spoke first.
I was just going to say that we also have something very similar to what Sir Martel has over in Ansteorra. We have a book of unit tactics for both small unit and large unit. We usually have events. We don't have one particular event, but we like to do as many events as possible that focus on melee tactics to kind of help make the team, make the fighters more cohesive. But for your direct question about the shields, yeah, I don't know if it's so much of a Southern thing, but I see there's like two basic aspects going on. One is again tradition. We had many years ago households that specialized in large shield tactics. You know, the immovable shield wall, the one that we can like march around and allow our archers or our spearmen to make the kills and still be able to protect as well as possible. That kind of goes through undulating stages over life of like one, popularity, two, availability, but for the most part, we always try to, especially for this war, encourage fighters to do large shield tactics, because in battles where shields can indeed mean the difference between winning and losing, like in the door of a fort or in front of a bridge, those large shields are what's going to do it for you, not everyone's small tourney shield.
Yeah.
But there's also there's also, I think, a thing. I'm sorry. There was also one thing I think it's kind of like a fascinating side note for me, is that we've noticed that, or I have noticed that fighting has evolved over the time. I've been in the SCA for many years, like well over 30, and seeing fighting evolve over that time, it's almost like a microcosm of seeing, as a history buff, how fighting has evolved in real life over the centuries. Like crossbows now that have the range, the power, and the effectiveness, almost of like a gun. Like, I got to see that progression from little bows that were pretty ineffective with those golf tube arrows that we used to use, now to bolts that fly straight, true, and fast, and are extremely effective, and the use of crossbows. And I also see the same thing in the use of spears. Spears have picked up in popularity as well. Why they've picked up in popularity? Because they are a somewhat advanced weapon to master. I'm not sure. Maybe it's the desire for glory to kill people. Whether it's this seems like something, because there are a lot of people that are like, I am never comfortable with sword and shield, but I'm really comfortable with a two-handed weapon. I think that's a big factor as well. I think that in the fighting over time now, everybody was just handed a sword and shield back in the day. Now you see like a lot of people that have gravitated towards weapon styles they feel suit them more and more efficiently, depending on a list or in a battle. And I think that in addition to seeing the increase of a lot of different weapon styles on the field, you see kind of like basically the unfortunate decrease of what we have been pushing for in the past. Having large shields or having that Callantir-like wall to protect us with, we don't see very often. Not in our kingdom, not in a lot of kingdoms that I've seen. A lot of people with shields, but not to that extent, not to that context. Yeah. So it's basically just that's how it evolved too.
Yeah. I have some quick thoughts there on the spear aspect. Spear is my primary weapon for the longest time. So and again, I go back 30 years as well. I started fighting in '93. So a couple things. So fiberglass availability, fiberglass spears, right? You have allowing face thrusting, which when I first started fighting in the big battles, you'd not allow face thrusting. That really improved the effectiveness of a spear. You have what else was I going to say there? Availability of gauntlets. So it's more easy to get gauntlets now, and you have an older population of fighters, which means they have more money, which means they can afford the gauntlets to go out and fight spears. Also, with the older, and this is something I know Bess, you and I talked about, with the older population too, is that spears a little bit easier on the body than if you're fighting with sword and shield and you're expected to charge into the scrum and get pounded down by glaives. So I think just having an older population, I think a little bit of the glory, you get more kills. I hear older fighters say like, man, I just got to get off of the wall. Can you show me how to fight with a spear? And we could fast forward 10 or 20 years from now, and if archery becomes that much more popular, we might see spears start to go away, because archery is sort of the great equalizer for the spears.
Sure.
Real quick side note, when I first started fighting, I fought with a greatsword. how many great swords do you see in battle anymore? Back then, you had to have pole arms at a limit. Penzik pole arms at a limit of 6.5 feet, and you had to have padding on it. Or you could use a greatsword of the same length with no padding. It was just much easier to get a kill. But once they went to 7.5 feet with no padding, then greatswords became pretty much obsolete.
So I have a question about some of the video that we saw. And if we can go to, I think it's the 37 minute, yeah, right here. So Martel, I have a question for you. Earlier, Jean-Paul was saying that the res point for Trimaris was inside the castle. Is that correct?
Yeah.
When we're defending, that's where the res point is.
Can you pop up the beginning of the first video from last year with the drone?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. What I'm curious about, just as we go, as Sigrid slides back to the beginning, is it seemed like you guys were fighting at the res point. Like I saw shields blocking crenellations and stuff. So
Okay.
Composite? Is that what you want? Okay.
So the tree in the bottom, I don't know why I'm pointing.
I was doing the same thing. I was like, it's a tree right there.
The tree in the bottom left of the screen.
Oh, the big one, right? Okay.
Right around there is the attacker's res point.
Okay.
And the defender's res inside the castle.
Okay. And do you guys have like a 10-foot radius where you can't, like you have to let the attackers or the resurrectors fill?
Man, that would be a good and fair thing to do, but we don't.
You know, okay, that's so you don't have a set rule like that. Okay.
Yeah. So on the house inside the castle is typically worth 2 points.
Oh, there's a house inside. I didn't see that. Yeah. Okay. So where exactly inside the castle do you guys res if you're also fighting in it?
We usually have a marshal in there, or there's a this year we put a chair and you just have to get the chair.
Okay.
But
that makes sense. Okay.
So while the house inside the castle is technically a contestable point, I've never seen an army of attackers push all the way inside so close to res and get it. Although this year, I think the attackers both times had a false start, and so we got bottled up inside pretty bad on both sides.
Can we take a pause here now, please? So there's the one house inside the castle, and then there's the one in the lower, the one I'm pointing at, the right-hand side. There's the one with two lonely people over on the left side. Where are the other, or are there only the three? I thought you said there were six, or is that this year?
Yeah, for this year, we had two. All right, there's one, right where he's pointing at now. There was one in the middle and one that was closer to the fort. So there was two in that battlefield between the rivers. Okay. There was one all the way to the right where the tree is. Yeah, there was one. Actually, there was two over there because there was one right along the edge of the fort and then one further back next to that tree. And then way on the other side of the fort, to the left, there was one on the far end. Yeah, even further.
Wow.
So a little bit further. Yeah, it was at the end of the river. There was a fort. Yeah, right about. Yeah, there was one there and then one behind the fort. So there was like six altogether. I don't know if what I just said added to six, but that was those were the six.
So it looks like right now the armies are converging around those two main huts, except for those lonely little people where the pointer is now. What was your strategies going into this? Was it just like get somebody in and hold it, or like how? I thought I saw during part of the video people fighting over the top of the house, but I could have been mistaken. It might have been through a doorway.
You're only allowed to fight through the doorway.
Okay.
So you can only enter and either thrust or hit in the doorway. Like no one could whack you from the top of the house. Generally speaking,
each house has two doors.
Yeah, two doors. Yeah, one on each side.
Okay.
So you need to send it. So our strategy was we send a large group of fighters, more with good shields, because you have to defend two doors for it to remain uncontested. So you had to make sure that you had the manpower or the fighter power to do it. And excuse me, we concentrated on what would be the easiest. So the one that's right in front of us, that will probably be easier. The ones on the far ends might be easier. The ones that were closer to the fort were going to be the ones that were more hotly contested. So we concentrated our forces in trying to go for the houses that would have the least amount of fighting involved.
Okay.
And then we didn't leave the others to their fate. So we definitely sent people over when we could. We just decided let's do what we can to try to garner, since the name of the game is garnering the houses to get points. How can we get the houses with the least amount of energy? Oh,
And
there I am, right there. I think I just got hit.
And is this possession of the house at a certain mark, like the 32-minute mark, or is it just how long down to the second?
It does change year to year.
Uh,
I think this year they checked every 10 minutes
every 10
and
minutes.
applied points at that point.
I'm curious, what are the structures made of?
Oh, they're little pipes.
2.5-inch pipe. They're meant to fit together with locking chains. They're a lot stronger than you might think.
And
They'll stand up to significant abuse.
Yeah, they look like, I'm surprised. I thought they'd be something like PVC and going down quickly, but they're holding up really well.
No, a good design by Count Daffod of Ansteorra. He's an oil field worker and just loaded him up.
Quick question for you. I noticed, so the rivers in this video look very similar to when I did Golf NATO. Oh, look, there's Duke Byron down there, not the mark. As I said, you can sort of see the heraldry from up here. So the rivers remind me of when I was there for Golf NATO. But the rivers this year looked like they're much closer to the castle.
They were.
And what was the reasoning behind that? I'll say I was a little disappointed because one of the big reasons why I came down for Gulf Wars was I got knighted last August. It's like I wanted to go walk in the river.
Yeah, that might have had something to do with also the whole 6-foot weapon rule that kind of got thrown away. So those ropes are actually they're immense. I mean, they're about like 8 or 9 inches around and weigh hundreds of pounds. So
they're like battleship anchor ropes or something like that.
Yeah, so they can't be moved around easily. So wherever I personally was not involved in the decision to place the river.
I would give it a map and a cart. and I followed the map as well as I could with the 3 helpers I had. Those guys did great.
By the way, quick side note to this. I do a lot. In fact, I'm going to a practice tomorrow in Atlanta. Shout out to the Honorable Lady Tegan, who's watching right now. She's running this practice. And we started using ropes to create bridges and field battles and stuff like that. Now, I don't use ropes that big. I use 3/8-inch rope. And yeah, that's where I got the idea from, is Gulf Wars. And now, I mean, I've got a little 20-gallon tub full of ropes. We go around and we set them up. We set like all sorts of different scenarios. And it's been kind of a staple in our area to use that. So I kind of stole that from you guys. Someone said they would like bigger obstacles. I said, hey, if you want to bring your pickup truck, you can throw out whatever you want out there. I'm bringing this little bit of ropes. But sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I don't remember who supplied them, but there was someone in the Merchant Marine. Effectively, every time their boat and got done with their ropes, because those are no longer good enough to secure a so many tons boat. They would just take them onto Gulf War. There's also some at the Border March Castle in southern Ansteorra.
Wow, I really like that. So this is the first battle that we've got, and I see that we're coming, it's 5 to 9, and we don't have a lot more time. The second battle, though, that I think you guys had this year was a ravine battle, correct?
Right.
And do we have...
For heavy, yes.
For heavy, yes, sorry.
Yes.
One of the questions, Jean-Paul, you had said earlier, it was interesting to me, you had said that sometimes you have the ravine battle and sometimes you'll be set up like east to west or north to south. And I'm just curious, you said that changes year over year. Do you have any kind of, you don't publish a handbook ahead of time? It's unusual to me as a northern fighter accustomed to Penzic. We have everything like in a handbook kind of established ahead of time. There's no Gulf War handbook like that?
This was the first year there wasn't.
Right. Everything was online. Like when
Oh.
you used to go to like a big war, you're handed like a booklet at the door, and that had all the information, all the rules, all the battles. So, yeah, everything about the war was in this booklet. This year for Gulf Wars, they did everything online, which made some things easier, but some things a little more challenging to look over. Not everybody had a phone. Not everybody had a phone with good service. Not
As you
everybody
can
had.
imagine,
We
Yeah.
had that at Penzic too. It was at times it was awkward. Yeah.
well,
Right.
as you can imagine, there's a younger generation was very happy with the app, and those of us older were like, "What is this? I don't like the phone."
I wanted
Like,
a
look,
paper I can highlight things on and make a paper.
back in my day, we had books.
I had an addendum given to me by the king a few weeks before, which was basically a very basic schedule for the week,
Right.
which is what I really wanted from that paper booklet. I want to see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, blah, 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 and what the battles, light and heavy, because I do light as well now, what the schedules for those battles were. And then I could also plan, like, okay, are we doing strategy meetings for each of these battles? Or are we just doing one strategy meeting? All right, now I need to know about the battles. I need to know all the details so I can be able to relay that information. Just like for the Ravine battle, are we doing it lengthwise or are we doing it widthwise? If the question is, why do we switch that up? I'm not 100% sure. In some ways, it's a little more dangerous because I think Callanteer's campsite is on the upper edge of one of the sides, and it's like if we go the other direction, if we go the direction we do go, and archery is being used, I could see a wild arrow flying where it shouldn't go, but I don't know in particular why they switched those around. I have guesses, but I'm not 100. I couldn't tell you that there were the reasons.
So
Hey, can I jump in real quick? So for those listening, so the ravine is, I heard the guy that does this video actually, imagine like a long hot dog bun. And if you're doing it lengthwise, that means that the res point is going to be at either end of the hot dog bun. And you're fighting sort of, down along, like you're going to meet in the middle of the bun, and that's where you're fighting. And then what we did was, I guess you said widthwise. So your res points are going to be at the top of the bun, and you go down and you fight in the middle of the bun, and you kind of come back up on the other side. And so that's what we did in this battle. And you can see where since he's an archer, he's in the back, kind of close to the res point, and he's shooting down into the ravine, and you can see people kind of coming up and back down. And then on the other side, you can see people up on the other hill. So yeah, the fighting was kind of like right in the middle of that little sort of gap there. Again, for people that are not familiar with Gulf Wars.
Yeah. And one of my guesses is that I think there was like some attempt to like make the distance to walk to the res points a little easier. And while they may be shorter as the crow flies, it's a lot steeper. So you're not people are not going to be running up a 8 or 9% grade hill.
Nobody my age, anyway.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Because the name of this game, especially since there were 2 45-minute halves, like a soccer game, it's conservation of energy. You want to fight the whole war or the whole battle, you have to be able to, be able to breathe the entire time.
Yeah.
Be able to fight the entire time. So you have to figure out how to do that.
I'm going to say when I fought the town battle, now I've been fighting for almost 30 years. I turned 50 this year. And I remember at the beginning of the town battle, I thought to myself, my God, there's no way I'm going to be able to keep up this pace. And about 10 minutes into the fight, I found out that all the inexperienced people had blown out their gas in the first 10 minutes, and then everything sort of slowed down. But that first 10 minutes is like, oh my God, it's like I'm getting too old for this crap. Yeah, and yeah, I didn't mind walking back up and down that hill, but again, I think maybe just because my expectations are pretty low for I was like, all right, I got killed. I'll get up to res point and get back down eventually.
So Martel, Jean-Paul, earlier before the show had started, we had been talking about the battle layouts and battle plans, and you had, in the start of this conversation when we were talking about the ravine, you said, well, just tell me where to be type of thing. So can you tell us a little bit about how the battles are set up at Gulf War? Who determines? Oh my God. So
Yeah, he had a branch. The
Okay.
branch like caught onto his camera.
Can you tell us who sets up the battles and how they're set up?
Absolutely.
Generals.
I'll go with this battle in particular, the one you're seeing now. For our side, I was the one that had to set it up. So all the surrounding allies, they sent their representatives or generals or kings, and they go, okay, where are we going to be? And that's when I said earlier, well, where would you like to be? Because some of them came up with like, we would like to be in the right side, if that's okay. Like, absolutely, go ahead and take it. So it was just a matter of like, all right, we know because this is really a battle of attrition rather than like really complex tactics, just being able to let people go to the side that they wanted to go or felt most comfortable going so they can attack their objective in the best way they can. That for the ravine battle, that was probably the easiest to set up. So I said, all right, Meridies, you go there. Mid-realm, you go there. They had requests that certain other kingdoms joined them. It's like, okay, I told their representatives, go with that kingdom. They want to fight with you there, or go over there. And then since the battle it's a timed cumulative battle. There's 3 points, as Martel had explained earlier, and each point had a flag that was either Trimarian or Ansteorran. So whichever one was up, there was a time clock. And then all that time was added up at the end of the battle, and whatever time, whoever had the most time, basically whoever had their flag up the most, they took the battle. They took the point.
And Martel, what were your tactics for this?
So my forces were 2 large kingdoms, Ansteorra and Callantir, and then some assorted allies. And so we put Callantir on the left objective in the first battle, and then Ansteorra on the right, and then we put our allies in the middle, and then each Ansteorra and Callantir gave 1 unit each to make that a viable force, and each group was assigned get that flag. And I did do some shifting over of forces mid battle to try and get the 2 flags that I felt were more feasible to get. And then in the second one, after attrition started setting in, we just made it a fight. That was just a slog at that point.
When we were setting up for this discussion group in our chats, either with us or in another one with Barry that I'm in, he had referenced a battle where there were no combat archers at X point. Or Barry, can you talk a little? That was this one. That was this one. Yep. And why do you not have some combat archers in some places? Was that tactical?
I was told it was a safety issue. I think it made it less safe personally. But so we're fighting down the hot dog bun, and there's 3 flags down the bottom, and archers were only allowed to position themselves on the far flag. On one end. And I hope we don't do it that way again, because we did this way last year, and I had a moment where I saw a spearman who had exposed himself past the line. I'm a shieldman. I've got him dead to rights. I took 2 steps toward him, and then like a cartoon on marbles, just kind of like flowed across crossbow bolts and then bounced off of him, because you take several hundred archers or several hundred bolts, and you shoot them into a 30 by 30 place where you're contested ground, and you make a major trip hazard. I know there were some guys I heard who liked the idea of like, well, I don't like combat archery, so I'm just going to fight over here, and they enjoyed that, but it made that one section
brutal,
kind of not fun.
Yeah. And on that note, real quick, John Paul, I don't know how much you had to do with this, but I was in that section the whole time, both directions. So if you want me to come to coordination or something at some point, so I can get the unarchery section of the ravine next time. I was talking to one of my friends who's like, oh, we didn't have any archers where we were. I was like, how the hell did Atlantia get no archers? And the east is like in the middle of all the archers. And we brought half of our unit with spears.
See, I
Oh
have
my goodness, I did not know that. Yeah.
I
We'll definitely make sure that we'll figure out a way around that next time.
All right, I appreciate that.
Well, I have to say, as I'm watching this, I'm astonished. As I was saying earlier, the sky blackens with arrows, but look at the arrows here on the ground. And this is obviously in the background. We're not on right at the banners. And I'm amazed by the volume of bows or arrows on the ground. Like that's a buttload of bows.
Yeah, we had about, I think altogether, like approximately 30, 35 archers, and each one carrying, they'll probably have in each quiver like maybe 50 arrows, and they'll probably bring like 2 or 3 quivers. Some bring like four quivers of arrows. So you're talking about like 1,000 arrows all over the floor that all have to be picked up, all have to be remarshaled before the next time they're used. So
yeah,
wow.
At the far end, on the Ansteorra end of the hot dog bun, there was, I think, toward the end of the battle, there was a pile of arrows that, oh God, must have been higher than my knee, and I'm tall. I mean, like halfway up to my hip. And at one point, I'd stepped on it. I looked down, and I told whoever I was fighting across, I was like, you know what? I'm not fighting anywhere near that pile. I was like, just fight me over here. I was like, I could fall in that thing and break like $400 worth of arrows.
So yeah, actually, that's a fair question. When the arrows are that deep and they're a slip and fall hazard, the marshals don't pull them out, because if nothing else,
they try.
But
you see some art. You see sometimes. I mean, the marshals are their primary concern is the battle and the safety of the fighters as the battle's happening.
Yeah.
But there'll be times when, if there's a hold or something, they see a bunch of arrows, I'll see them reach down, grab them, and throw them behind them, just so they're not right under people's feet.
And to be fair, that pile I'm talking about, that was actually out of bounds. I just it was kind of like spilling a little bit in bounds. That's where I happened to be at that point.
I have to say, I was really grooving on the idea of like, there's combat archery, but there's a section where I can go where I wouldn't get shot at. I'm like, I want to bring this home to Benson. Now, do you have, for all the battles that you have, do you have combat archery in all the battles?
For Gulf Wars, no, not. Or there's archery available in each battle, but each battle has like 2 or 3 different, we'll do each one like, a few times.
Right.
We'll do like an archery with, or one battle with, one battle without, one battle with, one battle without. Meaning like the field battle, the first and third field battles will be with archery, the second and fourth without. So that kind of gives us a chance for the archers to play, the chance for the people to play with archery, the chance for people to play without archery, and also a chance to, like I said, gather and check the arrows for safety.
Good points.
I have a couple of interesting tactical things to talk about here real quick.
Sure.
One I noticed was, this is just a silly little thing that happened, was we kind of made it past the ravine, and we're sort of coming up on the other side. But that's me right there in the middle, by the way.
About to be friendly
Sorry,
fire.
I see myself. I get distracted. I'm like Gaston. I get distracted by my own reflection. No, there was a friend of mine and I were across from 3 spears, and we were sort of holding them off. And they looked like they were younger, less experienced fighters. And then 2 of them got hit with arrows, and then they went away. And they came back to exactly the same spot, and they both got hit with arrows again, and they went away. And then the third time, one of them came back to that spot, and I saw the other one come around like from behind a tree from the other direction. I turned to my friends like, he's learning. And I've seen before in a video of Gulf Wars, a guy with a camera like this on an archer. I remember he was shooting all these people down the ravine, and I remember seeing this guy, big guy with a big blue tunic, and he positions himself on the end of a line, and it's like right in front of the archer, and the archer hits him, and then like 2 minutes goes by, and the same guy shows up in that's me right there. That's me. That's my back. 2 guys showed up, and I'm sorry, the guy 2 minutes later, the guy shows up in exactly the same spot right in front of the archer, and he shot the guy again in exactly the same spot. And I watched that video. I thought, wow, it's really easy for archers to kill you. Just keep coming back, like standing right in front of them. So yeah, I thought that was sort of interesting here. The other thing I was going to say is that we were on the first half of the battle. We were on the far end, the east. We mixed in with the mid, and we were going after that objective point down there. And probably like 10 or 15 minutes into it, we pretty much just abandoned that objective point altogether, and we moved to the middle one. And I'd asked our commander what was going on, and they pretty much said, well, we have no chance of winning that objective point. And because of the nature of where the res points are, they're not going to take that and flank and come and hit us from the sides because they're running into our res point. So that was an interesting sort of tactical thing that we did. We just kind of gave up that position, knowing that they really couldn't get any real tactical advantage from there. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. It was just something I was thinking about as we're watching the battles, as we were fighting in the battles and sort of decisions we had to make out there. I'm not usually one who likes to give up an objective point, because then they might just give up defending and also focus their guys down and just take the point.
So is there anything that Martel, you or Jean-Paul will take from this for next year? Would you say, oh, we've learned X or Y from this battle and that you'll make for suggestions for next year?
For the ravine battle?
Yeah, for the ravine, in this case, the ravine battle, yes.
Let's see. Well, one, I personally prefer when it's like the long way. I think that's like a bit safer and a bit more of a fighting challenge than this way, because if it's so much shorter, there's not a lot of opportunity to do much more. But it's just also personal preference is what I like that.
Well,
also,
I agree, especially if we switch sides halfway through, like we did this year.
Right.
You could argue that there is a real difference between that end of the ravine.
Yeah.
So for your second battles, like Trimaris was here and then Trimaris went there?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, we just completely switched sides. We just switched around. Actually, we just mirrored sides.
Mirrored sides, okay.
Yeah. Because people who are on the left stayed, basically became the right when we were facing the other direction, so they didn't have to cross the entire battlefield. They just crossed right where they were.
Oh, we did. Palantir was tired of archery.
Yeah. There was like two things that I wanted to address here. One, the idea of when you get hit by an arrow, you come back to the same spot. I personally do that because to me, what I'm trying to do is, even though he's killing me over and over and over again, I am going to try my best to not give the advantage of that side. I don't want, it's like, okay, that guy's not coming back because he's tired of getting shot. That's just one less knight with a spear that's going to be there. We can put in a few more people there and push. It's like, if I'm constantly there soaking up arrows, that's more, or that's less time for them to try to tactically take that area. At least that's been my take on getting hit with arrows, which I've done a lot. I come back with my arms. My arms always get the. I rarely get hit in the face. I'm always getting hit in the arms. I don't understand that. So I'm going to come back bruises. Yeah, and two, this is, I think, this is directly from the pandemic, and I think it's detrimental to not just the tradition of the SCA, but also the safety. And that is, there are no water bearers. There was a watering site way out in the main field, but like for battles like this, for instance, you only got to replenish with what you brought yourself to the battle. There was no system for water bearing anymore because, with the pandemic, we didn't want to, spread any more germs. And I don't know if that will ever change, or if this is just the paradigm that as we know it, that, well, we're going to have to just bring our own waters from now on. And
no longer sucking off the same straw with 500 other people.
Well, at least we went to like the spigots where you just shot the water into the helmet. So
I wonder if like younger fighters are like, you guys did what in the 90s? Like,
yeah. We were gross. We didn't know.
Oh yeah, that straw went from mouth to mouth to mouth, and you didn't care because you were so thirsty.
That way His Excellency can explain the mono.
I don't care if it's that warm sulfur water from Tampa. Hey, I'm thirsty. I need a drink.
Right.
But we went to like squirty. We went to like the squirty bottles, and that worked a lot better hygienically. All you do is just squirt water into your helmet, and that worked out well.
I know a lot of people wear camelbacks now up at Pennsic for fighting. You know, they just carry it up in on their backs. I'm always afraid I'll get knocked over and then like I'll explode it or something.
Oh, we have a household that uses those here in Trimaris to great effect, and that hasn't been an issue. As a matter of fact, my two sons now fight heavy in these battles, and they have their own little space because their mother is in that household. So they all have their own little camelbacks with waters, and they love using it.
Yeah, they're working well so far. So what are we looking at here, gentlemen? What are we seeing?
This is the oddly named battle called the Moab.
Moab, the mother of all battles.
Oh, okay.
Real quick, did you guys hear the beginning? It's not this video, it's the other guy's video, but this video is fine. You can leave it up here. He called it the most over. Oh, he had another name for it. Basically saying like, most overhyped battle or something like that. Not to say it was a bad battle, but after the rain,
if I may, there was a couple of things I'd like to bring up about this battle. One, I personally loved the whole concept of it. It was. It was like this. It was almost like a video game in a way. You're in a certain situation and you fight the boss, and then you're in a whole different situation and you fight another boss. And in this case, it was you're going from a field to a bridge to a town to a fort. So you had the opportunity within this one battle to fight all those battle types.
And just to understand correctly,
yes.
So it's one side has unlimited resurrection. And the other side, do they fall back to the next scenario as their one resurrection? Is that how that works?
So much like a castle battle, you fight those scenarios, and you fight it once as defenders and once as attackers.
Right.
And you win by defending the most time.
So I've done this one before where, like, let's say if I'm on the defender side and we're doing a field battle and I die, I immediately fall back to the bridge.
The bridge,
right.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then the attackers get unlimited res. So ideally they would have to kill everybody in the field and then immediately move to the bridge. And then if they kill everybody in the bridge, they immediately move to the next thing. Okay.
Yeah.
In that battle.
Basically the winning condition is taking the fort, which is the last part of the scenario, the last scenario in the battle, within the shortest amount of time. So from the beginning all the way in the field to killing the last man in the fort, you try to do that in as less time than your opponents do when they're attacking.
It's a wonderful concept. The only problem is it happens on Saturday, and a lot of people pack out Friday, which is why, as you can see in the video, we're pretty small on numbers.
Right. Traditionally, this is the most amount I've ever seen at a Moab battle. I've been because the Moab battle has also traditionally been done on Saturday, which, for everyone who isn't, Glenaubin, Meridies, or one of the closer kingdoms, you're talking about 10, 20, sometimes even a 30-hour drive. For a lot of people, they want to pack up. They want to get out of here. They want to get going. I would like to see this battle in its entirety, on another day where we can fully do it and appreciate it.
Are you sure you want to hand out that general's baton? We could do this, man.
I'll let Eric know. He's like a kind of he likes to put things together.
Yeah.
The last battle at Pennsic is actually on a Friday, and then people will pack up and move. But you'd have a lot more people, as you say, like coming home to Ontario. It's like it's a 2-day drive. It's a long 2-day drive. So certainly you don't get people from Eldamere sticking around. Wouldn't expect on a Saturday.
There was a few mid-roamers there. Mostly it was Glenaubin, a couple of Trimarians. Well, actually, I think. Yeah, it was me and another archer who was Trimarian. But there was a few mid-roamers that were still there. I knew they came a long way, so they're going to fight as much as possible. Yeah. Also, inexplicably, whereas even though this battle is on Saturday, last year it was a war point, This year it was
Okay.
not. And that, I think, kind of also dulls the shine a little. Everybody wants to fight and have fun, but not everyone will. I think people will be even lesser motivated if they know that this is just a for funsies battle. It doesn't it's not going to help the Warpoint effort.
I do think there were more people fighting in it last year when it was a Warpoint.
Yeah, we have.
I don't know. I was there last year. There we had I think 16 people. Yeah. This year we had 20 aside.
Wow.
There I am. I know at Pennsic, one of the things they struggle with. Yeah, Pennsic, one of the things they struggle with is, again, even though the last battle's on Friday, a lot of people like to pack out and get out on Friday.
Sure.
You had a long week, or some people a long 2 weeks. And the thing they struggle with is some years they'll do the field battle as the first battle, and some years they'll do it as the last battle. And the reason behind that is at Pennsic, the field battle is kind of the biggest, most exciting battle there. I mean, some people might enjoy some other battles better, but that's the real big one that everyone wants to be part of. And so if you do it on Monday, you're going to get the most people there. Because like I said, if you're going to do a couple of days, you're going to come in for the weekend, or we'd said this before we went live. You're going to come in for a weekend, and then you're going to take maybe a couple of days off from work, and everybody's going to be at that Monday battle. So you make the best battle at Pennsic the most epic it could possibly be with everyone there. But then you sort of reserve Friday for the least popular battle, and then it gets really small. Some years they try to save the field battle for Friday to basically try to encourage more people to stick around. And there's a bit of a trade-off. So you make the Friday battle a little bit bigger, but then it's still it's an 800-person field battle versus it could have been an 1,800-person field battle.
Wow.
Well, I got to tell you, those are even big numbers. Even 800 is I think at the Gulf Wars, how many fighters were on both sides? I think about 250 aside.
Yeah,
might have had 500 to 600.
Was it that big?
The count in the ring got right up to 260.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Wow. So I know I know individually how much everyone brought. I know East brought 20, Atlantia brought 20, Mid-Realm brought 40 heavy fighters and about the same light, and Meridia's brought 30. Aethelmark brought 15.
I think
so. Altogether, it was about 200 something aside. I think we came up just a little bit fewer than you guys did.
Well, I'll tell you one of the things I really like about Gulf Wars is that it's big enough to feel epic, small enough that you feel like you make a difference.
Yes, and in some ways, I the Gulf Wars pre-pandemic was starting to crawl into the 4,000 to 5,000 range of people, and that almost got a little. I would love to, but I didn't see that many more fighters. I just saw a whole lot more people, and that kind of made things a little crowded. This year, I think the big number, or the final number, was 2,700, and that was almost perfect for this war. That's a perfect amount of people. You feel like you're amongst you feel like you're amongst the populace. We have good fights. We have good places to eat and shop and hang out with, but it wasn't overwhelming or we didn't feel claustrophobic.
Yeah, if I could add in a couple things from my impression of Gulf Wars, we're getting close to the end of this now. In addition to these battles, we did the Moab battle. Some other things I like, I guess two things, is one, you have the Wednesday tournaments. I thought was very fun to watch. I didn't participate in any, but I got to watch the Rose tourney, which was it's 60. I think it was eight pits, something like 64 fighters.
Big.
That was a really nice big one. And we had, I think, in the East, we had 4 people participate in that. It was really nice to be able to watch that. And then the other thing I think is really nice about Gulf Wars is showing up and meeting people at the tree for pickups. That's a really nice. It almost feels like a Lord of the Rings kind of sort of situation.
Sure, yeah.
I remember when I showed up to the tree, I went there on Monday, and for me, I fight two-sword, and I really wanted to fight some of the Ansteorra two-sworders. They're kind of like the real sort of kind of like the pinnacle of two-sword fighting right now in the known world is the Ansteorra and sort of Duke Sven disciples. But yeah, I was able to go down there and meet some of them and fight those guys. And I remember as I left, someone had commented to a friend of theirs, they said, no one is here when we got here, none of those people are now still here. Something like, it's like this just, I forget how they phrase it, but there's this like constant rotation. There's always like 20 or 30 people there, but if you wait a couple hours, it's a whole different 20 or 30 people.
It filters through, a lot of fighters.
And because the site's a reasonable size, like everything, you can armor up in camp and walk over there. You know, like you don't have to grab a pickup truck, or grab a cult or anything like that.
I really miss the tree when I'm at Penzic and doing pickups in the sun.
Oh,
Yeah.
miss the tree and miss the March, right? Or the March weather.
Yeah.
What I learned about living in Trimaris is shade is your friend.
Right.
Right. I'd like to address something that you mentioned, the Ansteorran and the Ansteorran tourney and the Meridian tourney. We had talked earlier before the. I'll make this quick. We talked earlier before this started about who has ever been involved with the actual planning of the schedule for Gulf Wars, and I don't know if any of us have. I was lucky enough to be invited, but was told I didn't have any input, which is fine. I still wanted to hear it. And it was very interesting because there are certain things that were ironclad. And those two lists are two of those ironclad things. Like they have always been at those specific times and always will. As a matter of fact, the rest of Gulf Wars, all the other battles, heavy, light, the courts, everything were to be positioned around those two lists.
Wow.
And and not only that, but we had to make sure that you didn't have battles before the first court where you would announce allies. How can you fight a battle if you don't know who you're fighting for? I always wondered that, and we still every once in a while have battles on a Monday that we don't know who's with what. But be that as it may, I thought that the scheduling for this Gulf Wars was going to be great, with the exception of the weather that killed the battles on Friday.
Yeah, agreed. I really liked how the battles were set up so that if you wanted to, you could do this version of the town in the morning, change your kit, and then come back and do the other one in the afternoon. The same for Ravine.
Yep.
I like getting to fight Rattan and Steel.
Yeah, I got to do that at well, there were two separate battles. There was like the town battle and then the town rapier battle. I think those are two separate days, but I enjoyed being able to do that, and I could only hope that in the fullness of time we're able to see the scheduling where people who do both heavy and steel get the chance to do both without too much stress, or like, oh my god, I forgot to get my light kit from the thing, or I have to like take my whole heavy kit off and put my light kit on. I only have 5 minutes. Let's try to avoid that and
then run across site to the other fields.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think, Bess? I think we're getting pretty close to being done here.
I think so. Closing thoughts.
You want me to make your announcement here, or?
Well, let's get our closing thoughts in from our guests.
All right, John Paul.
Closing thoughts about this meeting, or this has been fantastic. Thank you very much for inviting me. I tend to be long-winded, and I apologize for that, but I just love talking about this sort of thing. So, if you ever need another guy to just blah, 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 blah on screen, I'm your man. Let me know.
Perfect. Thank you. Martel?
Yeah, quite the echo. It was an honor to be asked to be on this podcast. Thanks for having me. I like what you guys are doing. And again, if you ever want to talk about tactics or wars, I can talk forever about them.
Yep.
I did want to have a caveat to what I was talking earlier about the weapons of war and bringing stuff. I never want to tell someone that they have to bring the force multipliers, like the big shields and whatever people want to bring. I don't want to harsh anyone's joy. I'm happy to have them in the army. If you want to have dual cartridge handlers, just go nuts. Sorry, I made a note that I wanted to mention that because I sometimes come off like you got to be a soldier, you got to be in the army, and people got to have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got to say that I've appreciated you guys coming on and talking. Thank you. If you've never been to Gulf Wars, I really encourage you to get down, although I pluralized it, it's the singular. If you've never been to a Gulf War, get down there. It's a really lovely place. It's a happy, friendly battle. It's small enough that you do get a chance to see everybody, get to experience everything. And it really is something, a joy. And if you've only ever experienced a bigger war, this is the one to visit. It's really a fabulous war. And I encourage everybody to get down if they can. Barry?
All right, awesome. Now, I hope I did okay for my first time as the host. Thank a lot for Sir Bess for helping me out with those duties. So I'm going to read what we got coming up next week, which, again, Sir Bess actually wrote down, but I'm going to take credit for saying it. Next week, review of thoughts from the Book of Five Rings. They will be discussing how Musashi's approach to martial arts and strategy figures into SCA martial arts, both tournament and melee, with Viscount Tristan, Sir Lewis, Duke Branos, and Duke
Eliyahu.
Thank you.
I saw that your mic cut out for a second there, so I helped.
Oh, there you go. There you go. All right, great. Well, I guess we're going to sign off then.
Thanks everybody for coming. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.